So to continue on with advertisements to bid, advertisements to bid typically include the following information. So what you'll find is, again, with the invite to bid, it's probably going to be, pretty much the same. But this just kind of gives you a breadth of the information that should be on there. So, of course, you should list what the project name and location is. You should list location about the owner and the architect, so names, addresses, contact info, so that they can also learn a little bit more about you. In practicing in, in some places, in some municipalities, circles tend to get really small. And sometimes, word gets let out that somebody might not be the greatest to work with. And so it's kind of a two-way street, with the potential contractor, with the prospective contractor. They can also find out information about the owner and the architect, and if they find out that, let's say the owner is not known for paying their people, or the owner is just a really horrible person to work with, they might say, you know what, I'm just going to take a hard pass on this one. So it does create this kind of fairness with that. There's also a brief project description, what type of project it is, what size and scale of it the project is, what are the main construction materials or systems, what are the assemblies, equipment, anything that's might have it stand out more from other types of projects, or that might kind of stand out in, what's really important with this project. And then, other considerations, special considerations. So if the owner wants to do some specialized, let's say, facade system, that would most likely be included. Maybe the owner says, yeah, I want this facade system. I want it to do this. I want it to look like this. That could be considered, maybe one of those special considerations to include in it, especially if it's something that they're very specific about. With the submission requirements for bids, they will list a format, how it's solicited, or how it's to be submitted, in what formats. Is it, you could say, is it a written format, or is it hard copy versus digital? Is it a email versus mail? Is it also a specific breakdown? So if you want to compare apples to apples, like we talked about yesterday, do you actually give the format in which the contractor should be breaking down those numbers? So it might include that. And also the deadline to submit the requirements for bids. So that's an important one, because you want to make sure that everything's on track, everything's on schedule, and then everybody has the same amount of time to gather the same amount of information. So that is always going to be listed on there. Typically, I would say typically a deadline for submitting a bid is really anywhere from, I would say, 2 to 4 weeks. Maybe 2 weeks if it's a smaller project, 4 weeks if it's a bigger project. If it's a really, really, really big project, maybe it goes on to like 6 weeks. But that's a typical deadline for that. And then what the advertisement for bid will also include is the location of the drop-off, mailing address, or, typically nowadays, email or electronic submission requirements. And so a lot of times the bid will be uploaded to a common drive somewhere in the cloud. So that's a very, very common way to also submit bids nowadays. So kind of gone are the days more of the mailing and get everything by snail mail. now it's more about electronic submission and uploading, most likely to a cloud location.